But, you know, it really is interesting. And now, how many of you are here for the first time? I know some of you on the front row are, and we have some others. You know, I can relate to all of you. I can remember the first time I heard about Protandim and heard about Lifevantage. And I had been in this industry in terms of nutritional supplements for some time by that time. I first entered it as a lawyer, and I became general counsel for a company, then became president, and so on. And so when someone called me up, another lawyer, friend, you know, that sounds like an oxymoron. And that's, most of our lawyer friends are friends with lawyers. But anyway, he talks to me about his products, and then he gets somebody from the company on who talks to me about it. And my reaction was probably a lot like some of you. Supplements. I've heard a lot about supplements. Some work, some don't. I was pretty skeptical to tell you the truth. But then they sent the ABC primetime piece for legal advice, and I was really amazed at it. I mean, all of you that have seen it for the first time or whenever you saw it were probably pretty impressed. You know, thought, I haven't heard about this before. I was amazed that I had not heard about it before because I've been in the industry for a long time. And I think it is the single most positive national news story on a supplement that's ever been aired. And so I was actually quite shocked. How did I not hear about this? You know, this should have been shouted throughout the industry that there was this great piece on a supplement. And so it bothered me so much. I went to my wife and I said, "Did you ever hear about this?" And she said, "No." And so we actually went back, saw when it aired, went back and traced our timeline. Where were we in 2005? And we were in Europe. We were in Europe for 3 weeks, just missed it, and didn't never hear about it. And so it really piqued my interest. I thought, wow, that's interesting. As Michelle said, at the time it had one patent. As a lawyer, that really piqued my interest. I thought, how in the world did they get a patent? You know, these are ingredients that have been used for hundreds or thousands of years. How did that happen? Well, as she explained, it's because the company's able to show this novel use, that it has increased the body's production, not just in humans, but in mammals generally, of these antioxidant enzymes called superoxide dismutase and catalase and others. And back then, also as she mentioned, the science was not nearly as well known about it as it is now. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. By the way, how many of you are feeling like, well, I've got to be a doctor in order to talk about this stuff? You don't, because I've been in the industry at that point when I first heard about this. Oh shoot, about 15 years, I guess. And I was using words like antioxidants pretty, routinely. But like Dr. Adams said, I didn't really know what I was talking about. People said, "What's an antioxidant?" I would have said, there are those good things. You get in blueberries and raspberries and things like that. And like you say, excuses to drink wine and eat chocolate and all that other stuff. And then they would, so the natural follow-up question is, well, if it's an antioxidant, what's it anti to? An oxidant? Exactly, what's an oxidant? I don't know, I was stumped. I had no clue what an oxidant was. And you don't need to know either. Okay? Basically what I found out is just as Dr. Adams explained, that our body in utilizing oxygen produces oxidants. Okay? And I really we all have our own examples. Dr. McCord explains it this way. He talks about how, when a car engine burns gas, it doesn't do it 100% efficiently, does it? And there are emissions that go out through the tailpipe. Carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, things like that. Well, interestingly, when our cells utilize oxygen, then the cells don't burn it 100% efficiently, and guess what it gets off? Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, hydrogen peroxide, things like that. And those things, they go bouncing around, they leave the cell, they just generate them, they bounce around. Now, I grew up on a ranch in the mountains of Utah, and one of the things that was very popular this summer were demolition derbies. Anybody ever seen demolition derbies? Actually, to me, I think that's the best example of how free radical is. How does that work? You need a great legal mind. Well, here's how it works. In a demolition derby, the idea is to knock the other car out, right? And so they run into each other, and very rarely does the first collision knock either car out, right? Every once in a while, but usually it doesn't. But it leaves a noticeable dent, doesn't it? And decreases the efficiency of the car. Well, that's kind of what it's like when these free radicals leave the cell. They ram into the other cells, the surrounding cells, and they might not kill the cell at that time, but they leave a dent. They decrease the efficiency of that cell. So that cell that was otherwise programmed to just function normally, to fight off disease, to fight off bacteria, now it's weakened a little bit. It's not operating quite as efficiently. Well, just like in a demolition derby, as those free radicals continue to bang, 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 guess what happens? It beats up the cell so greatly that it becomes weakened, more susceptible to disease, starts aging more quickly, and ultimately dies. Even though many of those cells are not programmed to die, especially at that early of a state, but those free radicals cause the damage. And so, just like we put a catalytic converter or a carburetor on a car to control those emissions, our body has a system of enzymes and other things to help control that problem. So fundamentally, here's all you have to remember. Oxidative stress, that cumulative or total damage caused by free radicals, is bad. Okay, it's linked to over 200 diseases. If you go, we talk about going to the government repository of research called PubMed. If you go to pubmed.gov, you put in Protandim, and we might be the only supplement by name that comes up. So that shows you how we're a little bit different from a lot of other supplements out there. But you don't even have to do that. You can just go to Google. You can do what I did one time when I was in an Apple store. And I was waiting to get some service, and there was an iPad there, and I didn't have one at the time, and I started just kind of messing around with it. And I noticed on the internet page I was looking at, it was the MSN homepage, that there was an announcement regarding Glenn Beck, the radio guy, and how he had just announced he had macular degeneration. So I thought, I wonder if there's a link. I always hear doctor reports say how there's a link between oxidative stress and all these diseases. I wonder if there's a link between oxidative stress and macular degeneration. So I just Googled it. I didn't go to PubMed, I just Googled it. I typed in macular degeneration and oxidative stress. And voila. Literally hundreds of articles came up saying, yes, indeed, there's a link between oxidative stress and macular degeneration. And so if you want to know if oxidative stress is bad, just try it. Just Google whatever your disease condition is you're thinking about. Whether it be periodontal disease, like Kimberly talked about, or whatever, and you'll find there's often a link. And so if you can reduce that oxidative stress, as a supplement, we don't make disease claims. Legally, we can't, because we're not an FDA-approved drug. But we can talk about what are called structure function claims, and what Protandim does in the body to reduce the amount of free radical damage or oxidative stress. And if you do that, your body's less susceptible to those things that cause oxidative stress. Does that make sense? Well, upon hearing that, I then had and was asked to join the company. I then maybe had the same reaction you did. Okay, great. Now what? How are we going to sell this thing? How are we going to make it money? Great story, great science. How do we turn this into a money-making operation here? As Michelle talked about, in the aftermath of that ABC case, there was a tremendous deluge of orders that came by the internet to the company. So much so that it really crashed the company. Now, that was before I arrived, but it was a small little company based in Denver with just a handful of employees who couldn't keep up. And so, even though the company was virtually doing no business, and after that aired, over the next 45 days, about $5 million in orders came in. They just couldn't handle it. Okay, many customers' orders were lost and all that kind of thing. And also the stock price, because we are publicly held, and we're back then as well, went from about $1.20 to about $21. Pretty good deal, right? But because we can imagine that as sales started going down and all that kind of stuff after that stock price went down just as fast as it went up. So when I joined the company in 2008, I think the stock price was about 11 cents. Right? So what changed? The science was still great. There just wasn't a vehicle to tell the story. That's a pyramid, isn't it? What about your family? Is that a pyramid? Yeah. Mom and dad, kids, right? Every organization is a pyramid. So there's possibly a pyramid scheme just by virtue of the structure it has. It's ridiculous. Now compare that to a situation, most of us who are employees belong to a pyramid scheme, don't we? The boss makes the most money, the owner makes the most money, and everybody else is somewhere else, down, and flattens out is below you in seniority. Well, compare that to a network marketing model, where it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your age is, it doesn't matter what your educational background is, what your financial wherewithal is, what your sex is, what your ethnicity is, it does not matter. What matters is if you have a product that's real, like Protandim, if there's an opportunity to sell that product and make a commission on a residual income, then it doesn't matter. Okay, you don't have to be a banker like Michelle to succeed. You don't have to be a doctor like Dr. Adams or a dentist. You can be like Colt Elam, okay? Michelle knows Colt, some of you know Colt, okay? Colt was a 23-year-old firefighter in Tucson, Arizona, who had never been out of the state. Seriously. Okay, he wears a big old belt buckle like this. All right, so imagine where his musical taste lies, and it might quote. All right, and that's slippery. Like not I don't know about that. But anyway, this kid was about as unrefined as you would think about in terms of like. I guess when you chuck it, you say you have to change, but you really have actually. And what's happened is Colt is now a Pro 9 in our company. All right. He was able to, he loved being a firefighter. He was one of these guys that hated his job, and so he was working for a living. He just couldn't afford to do it anymore. He was making so much money part-time as a network marketer, he just, it was clear, I need to spend more time on this and less time on that. And it wasn't a get-rich-quick. It took him several years to get to that point. But as I often say to people, 2 years are going to pass by one way or another, right? You're either going to get closer to what you're doing or you're not. And so while it's not a get-rich-quick proposition at all, it might be get richer quicker, all right? Because I don't know too many opportunities, especially in this economy, where you really can take control of it by yourself. And based upon your own work ethic, your ability to be teachable and follow what a system that the company has in place for doing so, and watching what other people do to be successful, where you really can be successful. I've been amazed. Again, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a creative guy, okay? I'm not an entrepreneur necessarily. I think I've learned a few things along the way, but you can't follow me around for 6 months and become president of the company. You can't follow me around for 6 months and become a lawyer, even if you wanted to. That's what I recommend necessarily. But you can, by following Michelle around and doing what she explains to do, you can see checks starting in front of your mailbox every month by virtue of your efforts.